I'm Brian Bruda, and I will be doing the trumpet audition, the excerpts, and scales for the Ontario Provincial Honor Band. We're going to be looking at the scales first, okay? So we will do the C chromatic for you and the G chromatic. That's what we're going to look at first. Generally, for all of these, you want to make sure that you have a lot of air for all these scales and your etudes, okay? And by a lot of air, I mean nice full sound the entire way through. I only do one octave, but make sure that's still there. For this, I like to use the analogy of a house for these scales. You want to make sure that, yes, those notes are high for you, but you need to have a proper foundation. You do not start building the house at the roof. You don't build the roof first. You need to build the foundation and everything else. We're not going to get into that. But the reference here is that you need to have a strong low in mid register to ensure that the higher register sounds full and nice, okay? So a strategy I would use to do that, and this is what I like to do, is the strategy that I used here is the idea of almost that nozzle where you put your finger on the hose, the water fires out faster. And this is the idea here, is that you need to have the same amount of air that you would use for that low C, okay, in order to hit the higher notes. So what you do is close the embouchure hole, if you want to say it, okay? So from a low C, you're using more of an ah syllable. When you're hitting the higher notes, the high Cs, and all those other higher notes there, you're using more of an E syllable. E, and the hole is smaller. Same amount of air, smaller hole, just a faster velocity. That will end up helping you to get the higher notes for this, the scales, and in general, actually. Same thing with the low G. Low G is 1 and 3. It's quite low, but you need the same amount of air that you would do for the low C. Same amount. You're going from an ah to an E syllable, lots of air, controlled sound, and making sure that you're tonguing the first note and you're tonguing the top note there, and that's all you have to do. You only need to tongue the low G and the high G. Everything else can be slurred. And you gotta tongue that one, okay? That goes same one with the C. Make sure that these articulations are there. You're slurring the chromatic scales. A major, same thing. You're tonguing these ones. When you're tonguing these ones, make sure that you have a da syllable. I like to use da because it's a more smooth and sweet sound. Almost like a tenuto, but you can still shape the da syllable however you please. You can make it a little shorter and things like that. Don't make it dot or tu, ti. Don't make them too short. Don't make it. There's no tone to that. You want to make sure you're exemplifying your tone and your beautiful sound by doing these da syllables. Da, 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 da. Making sure that's nice in there. With the A major arpeggio, you'll notice in here you can just go. The only note that you really have to change the vowels for, other than 1 and 2, is the C sharp, 1, 2, 3. So all you have to do is. That's all you have to do. That's the only movement you have to do there. 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and everything like that. That one's beautiful because you can do the E there as 1 and 2. You don't have to make it open, and it allows you to place those notes perfectly. And then when you heard me doing this, take 2. Nice ba 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 ba. You want to make sure that those are nice and smooth with sound. Don't make them too short. Same with the B flat major and the B flat major arpeggio. Do the same idea. You'll notice in the B flat major arpeggio, same thing. The second note is the only one that you have to move. 1, 1, 3, 1, and everything else is 1 there. So only the D in that B flat major arpeggio is the only thing that you have to move. Everything is just that. That's all it is. That concludes the scale. So just make sure that you are naturally ascending and you're naturally descending with the scales. Bring life to the scales and make sure that you're doing the proper articulations. So we're going to be looking at Etude Set A for the Ontario Provincial Honor Band, and we'll look at Etude number 1, of course, first. With this one, it does say moderato chord note equals 60. When you're practicing at home, before you do this audition tape, make sure that you can use a metronome, but you don't want to use the metronome in your etude, in your audition tape, sorry, because that will detract from the listening committee. You want to make sure that you are playing how you would play. And I find that with a metronome, you become too metronomic. Go. You don't want to make yourself too metronomic. And I was trying to just show a very strict feel. You don't want to do that. Now, yes, it does say moderato chord note equals 60. Try and be close to that, but be yourself through your music. Because if you show expression, that will be much better to the listening committee's ear than someone who is playing metronomically. Bring some feel and some direction to the phrase. Make sure that there's a direction. Yes, I probably wasn't playing exactly at moderato chord note equals 60, but at least I had some nice, beautiful sound. I had some direction to it, and I was pretty much right in time with what I chose. You're not going to be penalized for being chord note equals 65. Throughout this entire thing, it's a very beautiful, lyrical sound. You want to make sure that you're not playing too heavy, too light and crisp here. That's not the type of etude. You want to make it sound beautiful. Nice, full sound throughout. So I ended off at bar 5. Let's just look at bar 6 for just a second. Just looking at the beautiful lyrical sound that you can make. So, at the piano there. See what I did there as well? I'm trying to exemplify the beautiful sound, but in bar 8, you'll have, and actually it's on bar 12 as well, and 13, these nice little syncopated rhythms. You want to make sure that you are perfectly in time with them, and that you have some emphasis. Not. There was no emphasis in the second one, but there's more emphasis in the first one there. More oomph. You want that. You want some more direction to your phrase and to your sound. Last thing we'll talk about this one is the last few bars. You'll notice that there are the staccatos, and you want to make sure that those are detached, not short. You don't want to go, let's start at bar 15 there, with the low B there. I'm going faster, but what I'm trying to show you here is don't do what I just did there. You don't want that really, really short sound, because what ends up happening is your tone deteriorates. You want to make sure that you have a nice, beautiful sound. So, hold it a little longer, but what I'm trying to exemplify there is that you're making that thing sound da 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 da. That nice short da sound. Remember we talked about that da syllable before, is making sure that you can shape that da syllable however you like it. So that is the etude number 1. Overall, just watch the fingerings. If you notice anything that is you make a mistake on, let's say fingering wise, circle that note. I like to circle a note if I make a mistake more than 3 times. So let's say bar 4, that's that first C sharp. If I make that C sharp mistake and I play it as C natural more than 3 times, I circled that because it gives me a visual cue, of that's a C sharp. Okay, good. Okay? That is etude number 1 for set A. Let's look at etude number 2 for set A. So Etude 2 for set A this one is a very light and crisp one. You want to make sure that this one's very smooth, very light and crisp. The way you can tell is at bar 12. You want to make sure that you're not going. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that it's nice and jumpy, nice and smooth. I mean, nice and light. Making sure it's got that oomph, just a light touch. Those accents on beat 1 and 2 are just slight accents. They want the composer wanted you just to give a little bit of emphasis on the beat and to move it, to keep it moving. That is what you'd have to do for this entire thing in making sure. Now you'll notice in the pickup to bar 1, the bump buddy, that is a very difficult leap. It's a sixth. Yeah, it's a sixth. You want to make sure that a way you can do this is doing lip slurs. This is a lip slur because you're just using one valve between the two notes, F and a G. Notice that's nice and smooth, and that comes with just doing those lip slurs. And you're going to notice when you're starting to do it, take 2. Notice that there's a smooth flow there. This is what you can do, and you can do this for all the valve combinations. So open, 2, 1, all that things, and just doing those from all the harmonics that you can do. So anything you can go with the first valve or the second valve, and just keeping them smooth. Don't tongue any notes, just making sure you're smooth. So. That's going through all the valve combinations. Now we have this one is just valve 1, F to a D. I would practice that one a ton. As many times as you can to make sure you get it. Now, I would make that 16th note F connect to the D. Okay, making sure that F connects to the D will ensure a nice smooth pickup into the first bar. Overall, this is pretty light and smooth, light and crisp. Sorry. Last thing here, bar 9, that pickup, B up, B up, B up, ba 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 ba. You want to make sure that you place that low F in that bar before. So. You want to make sure that you tongue that F. Place the F, find the sensation of where that F feels. Other than that, and make sure that you do an E syllable for that to make sure that the F comes out nice and smooth. Lots of air, light and crisp, okay? That is Etude 2 for set A. Let's go to Etude 3 of this set A. Okay, so set Etude 3 for the first set here is probably the toughest one. And I suggest doing this one in chunks. And by chunks, I mean you would work bar 1 to bar 6, and then keep chunking this until you get it perfect. That is called, you're just microing the spots, okay? Another way to do this is because it has 3 flats, it might be a little difficult. So what I would suggest doing is looking at the E flat major scale, okay? It has 3 flats. Play through the scale, play the thirds, like ba 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 ba. Doing that and just mastering the scale itself, because that will end up helping you with this. Or here, listening and learning the C minor, because there are parts here and it does have a C minor feel. So check out, C minor is also the relative minor of E flat major. So just check those 2 scales out, master them, and you should be fine. Let's look at this though. It starts out on forte. Nice, big, beautiful sound. Full, heavy sound, dark. Make sure your tone is very dark on this one, and in general. But notice the articulations. You're slurring to, tonguing to, and all those. Making sure that is coming out. Really exaggerate the dynamics and the articulations for these etudes. And then you'll notice, picking up into bar 3, it's subito piano. You gotta get really loud, because you're starting at a subito piano, so really quiet immediately, and getting right to a forte for bar 4. Bring that out and be exaggerated. Bar 5. Bring all that out. Your forte throughout there, and then bar 9, you're back at piano. This thing moves around with the dynamics a lot, so making sure that that's exaggerated is perfect. Bar 7 is quite tough. You want to make sure that when you're doing this, you practice it slow. Lots of air. And then slowly increase it. Use a metronome for this. Okay. Bar 9 is pretty much the exact same as bar 1, just a slight difference. So, just a slight difference. But it's piano, so making sure that that's exactly almost an echo compared to where bar 1 sounds. Looking at bar 13, 14, and 15. Sorry, 14, 15, and 16. Okay, you have that. Notice that I've gone from in bar 13. You're still at forte because the bar, a couple bars before, you are at forte. You drop down into a piano, and you get from piano to double forte, or fortissimo, quickly. So making sure that that's exaggerated, lots of air. Place that C, that G, and that high C for bar 15 and 16. Lots of air velocity, okay, the speed, to help you get the higher notes there. Overall, the same thing happens from bar 19 to the end. You start piano, and you get really loud to double forte. Nice and big full stop. Exaggerate it. Make sure that you see those staccatos, that they aren't too short, that they have the tone. Exactly how we've been talking for the other etudes. Make sure that they are nice and crisp, smooth. Okay. Overall, with this one is a more dark sound. Okay. That concludes the etudes for set A, and the scales for set A as well for the Ontario Provincial Honor Band. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask your teacher, and they'll gladly help you.
And we don't care about the young folks talking about the outside.